Great news. Dirty Keto is now on Amazon. If you're living in the U.S., go straight to Amazon and get Dirty Keto. Watch it, rate it, and review it. If you're outside of the U.S., meaning Western Europe or Canada or Mexico, it's not there yet. Don't ask me why. Listen, those people made me put a PG-13 rating on it when there was nothing in it that would have caused that. But let's get ahead of this thing. Let's watch it, rate it, and review it. Go get Dirty Keto right now, and on with the show.
Thanks for listening to Vinny Tortorich on NSNG Lifestyle Audio. Welcome to Fitness Confidential One-on-One. Vinny Tortorich, founder of NSNG, goes long form with top luminaries in the field of health and fitness.
I am Vinny Tortorich, folks. Your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, guaranteed.
He's pounded down, loaded up and trucking. Are we gonna do what they say can't be done? We've got a long way to go and a short time to get there. I'm eastbound, just like no bandit run. Keep your foot hard on the pedal, son, never mind them brakes. Let it all hang out.
Yeah, Smokey and the Bandit. Jerry Reed. Yeah. When I was a kid, everyone wanted to be a trucker. Every single person I knew. I wanted to be a trucker. We would take these long summer vacations, and I would dream about becoming a trucker. And the reason we're going to be talking about trucking today is because I have a lot of truckers who listen to this podcast, and truckers don't really look like they used to look. And we're going to talk to one of those guys today who's done really well with NSNG. It's the Friday show. This guy's done really well with low carb and driving a truck. So without any further ado, let me introduce Joe McKendry. Yeah.
Thanks for the applause. I see the people right behind you that are all clapping.
Yeah, everyone loves you, Joe. They don't even know who you are yet, but we're going to tell them.
All right. So,
Joe, when I was a kid, and I'm a lot older than you, you know, every song in the 70s was about trucking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even Jerry Garcia had a song called Truckin'.
Yep, that's a good one.
You know, you name it. It was all trucking. We all 18-wheelers. Every car, this was long before cell phones, every car had a CB radio in it. And the reason we had CB radios was because the way you were able, all right, so this whole energy crunch thing we're hearing now and saving the planet, it didn't start last week, Joe.
Right.
It started a long time ago. They were telling me in 1973 when I was a kid that if we didn't get our shit straight now, we would not see 1983. 10 years. This country, not the country, the world will end in 10 years if we don't get our shit together. We were wearing things called earth shoes. They were telling everyone you need to be a hippie. You name it. That's the world we lived in. If you go outside today or lick your finger, stick it in the air and see which way the wind's blowing, we're talking about the same shit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm not saying that it's not true. I don't know what's true anymore. I got to be honest with you. Everything they talk about with climate change, I get experts on this show and they'll go, yeah, climate change is real, but the climate's going to change no matter what, right? And the biggest problem with climate change is the fact that we're spewing all of this carbon in the air via cars and everything else. Yet they want to blame it on cow farts and what have you. Okay, I don't want to go off.
Vinny.
It's termites actually put more methane in the air than all ruminants put together. That's a fact. I
learned that from listening to your show.
Yeah, it's amazing what we learn on this show. I learned that stuff on this show, too. I got that from one of the biggest tree experts on the planet. He said the number one way that methane is released from animals into the atmosphere is the number one animal in the world, which is a termite, which is everywhere, right? Okay, but that's not the show we're doing today, Joe. I'm talking about truckers back in 1975, 76, when every song was about 18-wheelers. And, folks, I'm not kidding. There was one hit after another. Hollywood got in on the game with the Smokey and the Bandit movies.
That was a big movie, too. That played for a lot of weeks.
Yeah, and by the way, there wasn't just the one. There was like two, and I think they tried to do a three, right? Mm-hmm. So this was a big deal. Now, what did a trucker look like back in 1976 to me? Number one, you couldn't find a female trucker if you tried. It wasn't many women in the business.
Right.
Now, I think, would you say 40, 50% women? Joe, you're out there. How many women are in trucks?
I'd say probably about 30%, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Like if you go to the average truck stop with like 200 spots that, trucks in park, you might see 15, 20 females, but a lot of them won't park at the truck stops because, in every industry, there's jerks.
Yeah, I never thought of that. And by the way, that's what we're going to be talking about today, right? Is, what's going on in the trucks. Not so much that, but it's, you know what? That's sad. You just made me sad. I didn't realize that. So where do women park?
A lot of them I know a few, like the woman who trained me to drive forever ago. She's still driving, and like she'll only take loads now where she can park at the place where she's delivering behind a gate and all that. And I mean, now there's a company out there, that has an app called Truck Parking Club, and like you can get secured parking that way for a couple bucks a night. It's not too bad. It's not impossible to be safe out on the road, because there are some places even I'll pay for the secured behind the gate parking because I just don't want to deal with freight going missing or people banging on my door in the middle of the night, things like that.
Does that really happen? Because whenever.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I used to do a thing because I would drive crazy hours, right? I've been a road warrior my whole life. And when I was younger, I didn't have much money. And I'll add to that I'm very cheap. So I would just get to a truck stop and wedge my car between two trucks and let the humming of those motors that run all night put me to sleep, right? That was my deal. Because I figured that was the safest place in the world to be. And you're telling me that it wasn't safe at all.
Well, maybe back then it was better. Now there's so much crazy stuff that happens. Like some stuff that I've hauled, I've been told that I can only park in secure lots, and I have to back up against solid walls to make sure they can't break into the trailer. And there some areas there's concern about them hijacking the entire truck and trailer, and they don't usually like to leave witnesses. So,
wow.
I mean, it's not like it's super common, but it's not uncommon. And if you read like the industry publications, you'll see little stories here and there. On X, you'll find a story like either that or a trucker that died in his sleep and nobody found out for weeks because they didn't have a whole lot of contact with outside people. Interesting.
You never think of that, man. You really, I mean, that's not where this conversation is headed, but what an interesting, look, I was going all the way back to say back in 1976, everyone looked like Jerry Reed, cowboy boots. Right. They looked like they could have been on a ranch or at a rodeo. They had the cowboy hat, the cowboy boots, and they were skinny like Jerry Reed. Right? Every trucker I saw was this guy, man. It's like, I want to be that guy when I grow up. That guy looks cool. He's handling that rig out on the road. That's a manly man's job, man. He's doing a hard day's work and he's getting his pay, right? Right. That's what a trucker looked like. But as time passed, I would see truckers and I would watch these guys climbing down from the truck. And if the guy was 300 pounds, I would go, that's the healthiest one I've seen today. Right?
Yep. Yeah, it's getting pretty bad out there.
Yeah. And, you know, I was talking to Mike Rowe a couple of weeks ago on his podcast, and we started talking about people who are trapped in their own bodies, right? And it's not just truckers, it's everyone. So when you get in the situation where you weigh more than 300, more than 400, in your case, what was your top number, Joe?
Well, my scale topped out that I had at 600, and after I started eating right, it took about 6 months before it started dripping below that. So I'm just going to call it 600 and pretend that that's the high number.
But we all know it was higher than that.
Right.
Right. So how tall are you, Joe?
5'8".
5'8". Think about that, folks. He's not very tall. 5'8", over 600 pounds. But it didn't start when you started trucking.
No, it started way before that. I was lucky enough to be born at the end of the 70s, and right when the whole diet craze and low-fat this and calorie this, calorie that, and my mom and aunt and grandma, they got real swept up into that. Convenience foods were everything. That's where I first found out about Snackwells and Entenmann's, because I would try to take one and then I would spit it out. I remember my mom yelling at me for it.
I thought Entenmann's made, you know, like cakes and pies. What did they make? Did they make a low calorie deal?
Well, it was zero fat. That's what it was. So There wasn't zero calorie, because fat makes you fat. I remember my mom and my aunt saying that all the time. Fat makes you fat. And so they would just have to load it up with extra sugar to make it palatable and put this disgusting frosting on top of it. It tastes kind of like chalk is the way I remember it. It's been so long, but I have that memory of like chalky or something.
So your earliest memory, all right, let's take you to teenage years. That's usually when kids start noticing their own bodies. Mm. You make it to 12, 13 years old. Do you remember what you weighed back then?
Before I went into puberty, I was a stick. I always was, and I could eat whatever I wanted. Nothing mattered. But we really started in the family having things like TV dinners around that time, where you could get 10 for $10. I mean, hey, that's 10 whole meals.
Yeah.
And so my parents would load up the freezer with that kind of stuff and frozen pizzas and things like that. And that was at the time when soda was cheaper than it was so cheap to buy, cases of soda. And so they were always around the house, and video games were really making doing their prime. And I mean, I grew up in a town of 250 people. We had a gas station, not a whole lot else to do.
Yeah. I grew up in a small,
video games were big.
Yeah. I grew up in a small town, but it wasn't that small, right? We say we had 5,000 people, but I was already on the edge I was on the rural end, where it went into cane fields. So they were counting all of that, right? Everyone outside. So not as small as 250, but not a whole lot to do, right?
Yeah, we had a pond, but I mean, it was so dirty, and it butted up against a really old cemetery that year by year was not as big as it was the year before. So everyone kind of knew where things were going. Yeah. So it wasn't a real popular place to go swimming.
Yeah, no, you don't want to swim with dead people when you're a kid. It just kind of freak you out.
So by the end of high school, I was already over 220 pounds.
Okay, so you started gaining weight, 5'8", 220. Were you an athlete at all? Did you play sports?
No, I played guitar and other stuff, and that was pretty much my thing back in high school.
Okay. So not much of an athlete, more of an artist type. You were going in that direction. Kids would always take a path. The kids that played the guitars, stayed in their rooms and played the guitars, pretty much didn't play sports, and vice versa. There's only X amount of time. I get it. So you do that. You get out of high school. We're talking college, Joe. What happens? You're 18. What happens?
I tried getting into the Marine Corps. I was overweight, and I needed to get back down. So, I ended up getting married while I was trying to do that, and had a couple of kids. We had 2 kids to start with, and I was still trying to get into the Marines, and I got below the weight and got to Paris Island and got my inoculations and started doing the running, and then found out that my then wife was pregnant with our 3rd child, and they wouldn't allow you to have 3 children and be a private, so they sent me back. They just invalidated my contract, and
Okay,
that
so
was the end of that.
all right, so you tried the Marines. You're young. You're having a lot of kids.
hmm
All right, what year are we talking about there, Joe?
First kid was in 98. I had to think there. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And by the time I'm 23, we're at 4 kids now. And I mean, my wife at the time wasn't working. I was working, and I was doing things like fast food jobs. I would always be like, get into management, a lot of GM jobs for fast food places, because the stuff at the end of the night, where most places back then, you were allowed to take the food home. And so I was thinking, well, I get food for me, I get, food for the family, and a paycheck. So that's what I did for a lot of years. And after about 12, 13 years of that, I was over 300 by then.
What about your family? They're eating this food too. You're providing, did your kids gain weight when they were young? What's going on with the kids?
Of those 4 kids, the youngest boy, he was heavy and then followed in my footsteps once I was getting healthy, and got down to even under me, but he's 6'3", so I mean, he's tall.
Oh, wow.
And then just out of the blue, he just turned his back on it, and he's probably over 400 pounds right now. He's kind of just given up. I keep trying to talk to him, but you know how it is with kids. I mean, you can give them some suggestions, but unless you get a magic lamp somewhere, you're not going to get them to do whatever you want them to do.
No, and by you proselytizing and all that, all you can do is love them, Joe. That's all you can do, and you got to hope that they make the right decisions. I get it. So you're leaving this fast food world. You're over 300 pounds. What happens next?
Next, I go to work at a factory making boxes, and everything was going great. I was getting more exercise. I was still eating horrible and drinking soda around the clock, because it was 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week. And I end up trying to fix the machine. I become the operator of the machine. I'm trying to fix it, and I fall off the machine while I was working on it and hurt my back so bad because I ruptured a disc down at the L3 level.
Yeah.
And after a year of fighting with workers' comp, they finally agreed to do surgery. They dissected the disc and put in a spacer in there. And ever since then, I mean, I can't do sit-ups. I can't do like leg lifts or whatever. It's just excruciating pain. And I mean, I always have some level of pain in my lower back, but most days since I started eating better, it's manageable and I don't have to take anything for it, and I'm fine.
Good. Okay, Joe. So now you have a spacer in your back. Do you keep up with that job, or do you go somewhere else?
I actually got laid off in the middle of. Sorry, let me turn my notifications off. I got laid off right at the beginning of the recession. I was low man on the totem pole, and at like 07, 08, there just weren't jobs. I mean, you'd have an opening in my area for a job, and 200 people would show up applying for it.
Yeah.
And so I cashed out my 401k and went to truck driving school. And 5 weeks later, I was out on the road with my trainer and starting my life like that. And at that point, because I had to run back and forth on those machines, even though I was eating bad, I had gotten back down to about 250 at that point when I got into driving semi.
Okay, so still obese, but not as bad as you once was. Now you're in a truck. Now everything changes, right? So we're talking 08, late 08, you're now in a truck?
Yeah.
Okay. Are we doing long haul or we're doing overnights? What are we doing?
Long haul, and I don't want to disparage them because they did give me my start, but, I mean, they would keep you out a month at a time before they'd give you 2 days off back at home. So I was gone a month at a time.
Right.
With kids growing up at home and remembering that I have to keep my food budget as low as I can, because we weren't really getting, we were getting 25 cents a mile. And it sounds great when you think about driving in a car like, oh, I could have made this, but now think of all the hours and days you spend where you're not moving and getting paid nothing.
Right. Okay. So you're out there on the road, you're making good money now, because trucking is good money and somewhat recession proof when you think about it, right? So there's always a need for a trucker. Whenever truckers go on strike, we're all messed, it just messes up everything. You're out there doing that, and your weight starts to balloon at this point?
It began slowly. I started noticing it creeping up, and I thought, I can't believe how dumb I am, but I remember like, okay, well, they always talked about how healthy cereal is. So I went and got myself a little ice chest where I'd dump ice into it, and I would get milk, and I would buy just boxes of like Cheerios and Special K and things like that. And I'd sit there and I would just every meal I would eat cereal because, the generic stuff was cheap and, it's good for you. It'll help you lose weight. They said so on the commercials.
Right.
And like I said, I can't believe how dumb I was.
Well, you're not being dumb. It's more of an ignorance, but it's a learned ignorance, because they're telling us that these are facts, right? So you become ignorant because they've lied to you about the facts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
So you're not trying to ignore facts. You're trying to accept the facts. And the facts are saying this is heart healthy, this is what you want, grains are good for you. So you're doing the right thing, and you're getting fatter and fatter, right?
And at the same time, I was pouring liquid sugar on it because, only skim milk.
Right. Yeah, put skim milk in. So you're eating this stuff around the clock. You're in the truck.
Every meal,
Are you drinking soda still? What do you drink? Because truckers drink all day long.
All soda, and because of the reward programs for like one of the truck stops where the company that I was with got most of their fuel, I would get, free refills. So of course I bought the 1 gallon gigantic jug thing that you could get, and I'm drinking a gallon of Coke or Mountain Dew or Pepsi or whatever they have there, at a time. And sometimes I go through 1, maybe 2 of those in a day, just trying to keep my eyes open, because I couldn't understand why I'm like drinking the stuff with all this caffeine and sugar. I'm like, man, I just keep getting more and more tired.
And Joe, when you say a gallon, you're not kidding about the gallon, right?
I really am not. I wish to God I was. Like I could go through a 12-pack in a shift to,
I try to tell that to people, the size of these things. You see the truckers carrying these things back to their rigs. I stop at truck stops to fill up, because it's where the best gas is, it's cheapest, the bathrooms are usually clean. And I'm still fascinated with truckers, right? And I'm watching what these people are doing. And you see them getting back in their truck, waddling back to their trucks. And I remember a couple of times stopping, and it's like, I want to see that woman climb into that cab, because Joe, I'm not trying to be funny here when I say sometimes these people are wider than they are tall. And it's like there's no way that human being is going to be able to climb up that rig. And to watch him do it is pretty stupefying. Would you agree?
Yeah, I remember that feeling. I mean, I knew I was starting to get heavier, and then I was forced, because of my DOT inspection, my health screening that we have to go through every 2 years, the physical. They determined that I needed to go in for a sleep study. I was diagnosed with sleep apnea, made to wear that machine in my truck when I was sleeping, and I had to, once a month, take in the SD card and have them download the data to prove that I was wearing it so that I was compliant. And all through that time, I'm just putting on more and more weight, and I don't really start to think about it until, I knew what the scale said, but at some point you kind of just stop even caring what the scale says anymore. And at one point I'm doing my morning pre-trip inspection, which is where you spend like 15, 20 minutes. You go around with the flashlight and special, little tools, make sure everything on your truck and trailer is all safe. And I noticed by the time I get around, just walking at like the slowest pace you can think of, is because you have to stop and bend down and check things and measure things. And just one time around the truck doing that, and I was wheezing.
Yeah.
And that's when, I mean, I'd never read the book like that, but I remembered a relative had done something she had called Atkins. And I remember people telling me, oh, well, that's the one where you eat just meat. So I was like, well, I'm poor, and these horrible, horrible hot dogs that are 59 cents for a pack are meat. I mean, not really, but they are. Mm-hmm. And so I started eating that, and I know that they're horrible, but I started feeling better because that's all I ate, that, just nothing on it, that. And at that same point, I stopped drinking my calories because I knew, I just sat there thinking I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And so the only thing, black coffee, white, just plain water or plain tea, and I made no exceptions.
Yeah. So was it just because you had a relative who said Atkins, you remembered hearing Atkins at one point? Was it just like divine intervention? You thought about this, or how did that manifest itself at the beginning?
At the very beginning, she had lost a decent amount of weight. She'd always been heavy, and that's what she had said. I mean, that kind of got me started, but then I was listening to a radio show on XM radio because, we don't want to have to change stations every 5 miles as we go out of range for something. It was a nice little thing to listen to. And there's a trucking show where this guy talked about trucking business, because that was when I hadn't bought my own truck and gone into business for myself. I mean, I was still driving for somebody else at that time, but I was curious about it. And he started talking about health and about low carb, and I'm like, oh, that's that thing that I'm kind of on again, off again doing to try to feel better. And one of their guests just happened to mention, yeah, you should check out this Angriest Trainer podcast. It's brand new. Yeah. And I'm like looking all over for it, Angriest Trainer. And, there you were with your arms up, reached towards the sky, just looking like you were yelling. And I'm like, okay. And I subscribed. I think it was like episode 11 or 12, somewhere around there. And things were still a little bit rough, but I liked what I was hearing. So that's when I found you and started doing this. And
so, yeah, you go way back to when we were still calling it the Angriest Trainer podcast. That was the original name of Fitness Confidential. And it was because it was the early days of podcasting. And, we were like, well, there was a slot. You got to call the show something. And we were going to call it the Vinny Tortorich podcast, but no one knew who I was. And it didn't describe anything. It was just some guy's name, doing it. And, Serena goes, well, you're always angry because of all the wrongs that are done to people through health and fitness.
Right.
So call it the Angriest Trainer. And I was like, all right, that kind of rings. Well, we can do that. And I left it like that for a lot of years until I started getting on national talk shows and stuff. And the first thing they would say is, you're not so angry. And I was like, oh, God, I've spent half of my interview explaining that I'm not really angry. I'm angry for people, not at people, right? And so, yeah, you've been around from the beginning. And it's funny because I know we have a lot of truckers listening to the show. As a matter of fact, at one time, XM Radio was talking Sirius when it was. Is it still Sirius XM or is it just?
I think it's Sirius XM. Yeah.
Yeah, Sirius called me when it was Sirius and XM, and they wanted Anna and me to do a trucker show, right, on Sirius. And we talked. We went down that road for a while, and they offered me a contract, but there were some weird things in the contract where they were like, well, you got to stop doing your podcast. And I was like, no, the podcast offers me autonomy.
How long ago was that?
Oh, around the time, almost at the beginning. I want to say about, we were probably 500 shows in.
Okay.
So our podcast got big. Really, this podcast got big really fast. And I was probably 500 shows, and it was still me and Anna doing all the shows, 3 a week. And they came to me with that deal. And then another thing, I don't want to get into all the deals, but people are always coming to me to try to buy me.
Right.
And I'll sit and listen, but the reason I've stayed independent all these years is because there's always a caveat where once they own me, then I can't say whatever I want to say.
Like what happened with Prince.
Kind of, yeah. With Prince, they were like, hey, we own your name. So you say, all right, I'm going to call myself the artist formerly known as me, right? No, a lot of these shows just, and look, people always think of, Howard Stern as being, irreverent, right?
Right.
Because when he was just on radio, yeah, he was being pretty irreverent, getting strippers in there and asking them about and doing all this sexual stuff on radio. But, notice, Sirius gave him a $1 billion contract or whatever, but he's not if you go back and listen to his shows 30 years ago when he first, when he was getting syndicated around the country,
yeah,
and listen to him now, he's not the same guy.
No, completely different.
Yeah, they monitor, notice his politics, everything has changed. Right? And okay, that's fine. I get it. If someone gave me $1 billion, I might change my tune a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's about the going rate right now.
Yeah, but so far, and people have come to me not with that kind of money. They've come to me with some money, enough for me to stand up and salute, but I've never taken a deal because I always think about, wait a minute, I've promised people that I'm going to help them, right? And by taking a deal, all of a sudden, I now have to listen to that guy. And that's a problem, right? I'd rather be poor, right?
I like another podcast guy that I listen to that's 100% independent. He always calls himself unbought and unbossed.
Yeah. And I might have to steal that from that guy. But look, it's the truth. It's every time someone comes up with a checkbook, it's like, all right, I'm sitting there going, boy, this would be nice. But what am I going to do at this point? I'm an empty nester. What am I going to go buy another car, a shiny new car? What am I going to do with money? I know with the money I make, I know what I do now. I go do documentaries. I try to give it away.
Go buy yourself a big Class 8 truck and hit the road.
Dude, I don't think you understand. I literally think about doing that. And Serena is always worried that I might do that because my whole life I've wanted to be a trucker, right? I would get one of those shiny ones too, boy. I'd have all the stuff on it too.
All the chrome.
All the chrome. I would be a chromosexual. Yeah.
You're going to go for the old long nose or the old flat fronts, the cap holders?
No. I'm long nose, baby. I want that Peterbilt look. I want that big long nose. I want to sit back a little bit. I want to see that hood in front of me.
What some of my buddies call oval envy.
Oval envy?
The oval logo.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the Peterbilts, my brother, he doesn't have semi-rigs, but he has trucks. He has, flatbeds, right? And he's got some pretty big ones. He's got a Peterbilt in his group. I think might have 2 Peterbilts. But, I love that big long nose. I'm going to tell you a little secret. When I go home, I hop in it and take it for a spin. Whenever I think, oh, shit, that truck is just sitting there. And my brother's out on the road. He doesn't care because, I can drive air brakes and all that.
Right.
I know what I'm doing. And I've always backed him up whenever he needed help anyway. He doesn't care. I take it for a spin. When Tallulah was a little kid.
You feel that those big diesel engines, 650 horse, if you got them that high. Yeah, that's some powerful stuff.
And it feels cool, right? You're sitting way up there. You're on the road. Yeah, it's good.
I just bought myself a new truck. My old one was 1.4 million miles. It was about done.
Yeah.
And this is the first truck. Normally I have an 18 speed, and this time I have an auto shift. I don't like it because I keep trying to find where I'm supposed to put my right hand. I mean, it doesn't go on the steering wheel; it goes on the shifter. Everybody knows that. And then you're trying to reach for the clutch, and it doesn't exist. It's been weird.
It's going to take a minute, but once you get used to those, it's almost weird to go back to the big 18 gears.
Mm.
It's weird. Yeah, it's a strange feel, but you'll get it.
It's not too bad. It's just different.
Yeah. Who makes that? Is that an Allison transmission? Who makes that?
The one that I have right now is.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's pretty smooth. I mean, the way it feels when it's shifting, it shifts pretty smooth.
Yeah, Eaton makes the other brand.
Yeah. Yeah. Just when you said that, a car took off. Like.
Yeah, it's not our next door neighbor, but the one after that. He rebuilds muscle cars, and he likes letting people know that the tires are working.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That could get expensive really fast. We're going to take a quick break here, Joe, and for the rest of the show, I want to get into some of the things that happen because you're fat, right? Because you're morbidly obese. Mike Rowe and I, did you hear my Mike Rowe interview?
I have not.
We got into, different things. We'll get into it in a second. Let me just run this quick ad for Villa Capelli. Villa Capelli is the best olive oil on the planet. I'm telling you that because it is. I'm not making it up. Now, when you go, wait, Vin, you have one sponsor as an olive oil company? Yes. Yes. I can have a lot of sponsors here, but I've been sponsoring. This company's been paying for this show for years. And here's why. In the United States, you can cut olive oil up to 40% with seed oils and still call it 100% pure olive oil. That's a fact. I am not making that up. Go look it up. If you want to, you can find this information. There's been whole books written on this. Go get the book Extra Virginity. This is not a secret, folks. This is a fact. There are other good olive oil companies out there. Good luck finding them. They're out there. You can find them. But I know I can put my stamp of approval on Villa Capelli. They've been a sponsor of this show now since almost the beginning, back when we called it the Angriest Trainer Podcast. So go get Villa Capelli. If you put in promo code Vinnie, VINNIE, you will get 10% off. If you spend more than $125 after the discount, you will also get free shipping. So 2 ways to save at Villa Capelli. Go there, let them know we sent you. Put in promo code Vinnie, VINNIE, no wimpy Y. We're talking to Joe McKendry, truck driver, who made it over 600 pounds before he started getting healthy. I was doing Mike Rowe's podcast, by the time this show comes out, like 3 weeks ago, right? And we turned it into a funny segment because if you don't laugh about it, you'll cry, right?
Right.
But we were talking about the other problems that morbidly obese people have. I was trying to explain to Mike and Chuck that people live in a prison of their own bodies, right?
Right.
You're not in prison, but you might as well be, because the world does not fit you. When you're 5'8", 600 plus pounds, the world does not fit you.
No, there were lots of places I wouldn't go just because I didn't want to deal with it.
Well, that's what I want to talk about. The one I brought up on the show, and we got a little laugh about it, but it's not really funny. Was I said, people call me, they set up these consults, and it's after something really tragic happened because of their weight. Of course, I always bring up Scott King, and I brought up Scott King on Mike's show, and I told the story of his kid running out into the street. He couldn't get there in time to grab his kid. Luckily, no one hit his kid, but he realized that if a car had been coming, he would have been at a funeral.
Right.
Right? And he realized he couldn't protect his own family at that point. And so I told Scott's story, and I said, one of the stories is not common, but I hear it a lot, of the number of times someone, when they broke a toilet and they were sitting there in their own fecal matter, and usually because when you're breaking porcelain, you're also cutting yourself, and you can kill yourself if you cut yourself just right. You can bleed out before you get off that floor. They couldn't believe it. It's like, you got to be kidding. I said, no. Usually it happens in a place like an airport or something where the toilets are attached to the wall, right? There's usually only 2 lag bolts that go into that wall that holds the toilet up. And when they sit on the toilet, it pulls it off of the wall. And now you're crashing down and you're breaking that porcelain and you're sitting there in your own waste material. And worse than that, now you got to call someone to come help you because you can't get up. It doesn't get any worse than that, right? And that's when they go, okay, I have to do something, right? Can you think of other situations like that where you know, people talk, I hear all the time, I was on a flight, I had to buy 2 seats, all these different things. Go on.
Well, I mean, like for me, it wasn't quite as bad probably because most of my working time I was, all by myself, and I didn't go and do anything when I was in the truck and being gone a month at a time. I mean, when I went in to go take showers at the truck stops, I would always wait till like 3:00 in the morning so I didn't have to listen to people say anything. But I mean, there were a couple times where the showers that they had provided, I had to go in sideways, otherwise it wouldn't fit. Yeah. Just things like that. I think my job was a big contributor to the excess weight that I gained so quickly, but it also kind of shielded me by my actions that I took to avoid confrontations with anybody.
Yeah, no, I can see that. And so you're taking showers in the middle of the night to try to avoid everything. You can't fit into the showers. Do you ever feel sorry for yourself? Do you ever go, why is this happening to me? Or do you know why it's happening?
At that point, like before I first thought about, trying to do, what I called Atkins back then, or then turned to NSNG later on. Before I had even thought about doing that, I mean, I would get upset with myself because I knew I was heavy. Like when I took a shower, I could tell. I know it's not healthy, but I mean, I had thoughts of like, well, what if I just take a knife and just cut some of it off? Wow. I mean, I didn't actually ever try it, but I mean, I wouldn't say that I had that thought rarely. It was just one of those thoughts that you get through your head when you think you're doing what you're supposed to and everything's going in the opposite direction, but I don't know, I just wasn't ready to go look for an alternate answer.
So you see this big bib of fat on the front and you're thinking, I can just lop this off, right? Yeah. Yeah.
I knew that wouldn't end well. I mean, I was rational about it. I mean, it was an irrational instinct, like an instinctual thought, but I mean, I'm smart enough to know, yeah, and then you'll bleed to death before the doctor gets here, and then what?
Yeah. Yeah, you're no good to anyone, right? So when you start the Atkins, you start losing weight, you start feeling better in the truck? Or are we still drinking the drink? What happens? Give us what you were doing. We know what you were doing. Now you're listening to your cousin.
The very first thing I did, like I said, was getting the cheap garbage hot dogs that are filled. I mean, they have corn syrup and everything else in them. I didn't know any better. I saw hot dogs. I thought hot dogs. But the one thing I did do that made the biggest difference the fastest was stop drinking your calories. Yeah. I mean, I know calories isn't the thing that we focus on, but you should avoid drinks with calories, especially if you're that far gone like I was. And, I mean, tea, coffee, and water, that was all I drank. And I started feeling better after about 2 weeks because I was only eating those hot dogs by what I eat now are atrocious, but back then it was so much better than what I had been eating and doing.
And just to be clear, hot dogs, no buns, nothing. You're just eating the meat.
Just eating and I wouldn't even bother reheating them. I would just eat them cold out of the refrigerator because they're pre-cooked.
Yeah. All right. So you're eating hot dogs, you're drinking water, you're drinking coffee, you're drinking tea. Mm-hmm. Are you making this tea, or are you buying the ones they have in a truck stop?
Oh no, I got super inventive. I know now that doing this is bad because of the sunlight on plastic and all that, but I would take the tea bag, like Lipton tea bags, and stick 2 of them inside a 20-ounce water bottle, the ones that, the pre-filled water bottles, just the disposable ones. And then I would lay it in the dash when I was going to sleep if the sun was out to make sun tea.
You could do the same thing. Are you doing it still, but are you using glass or anything? What are you doing?
I brew my tea ahead of time at home and take it with me in a metal thermos, but my regular water, because I need so much of it, I have a 5-gallon, it's like a camping tote for water with a spigot on it, and I bring 5 gallons from home.
Oh, is that the big plastic jug or?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, but Joe, that's so much better because you're getting the water from the tap, right, into that plastic jug. You're not getting the leaching. I always try to explain this to people. Even if, let's say you go hiking and you have Nalgene makes those, plastic jugs, right?
Right.
And of course, that's not good. But if you're putting water from the tap in there, the leaching is not happening by the time you drink that water. The major leaching is happening when you buy water off the shelf in a grocery store and you're going, okay, this water just made it to the shelf 2 days ago. But when that water was put in that bottle, you're a trucker. You know where water sits. I mean, you go to warehouses, you see what's doing, right?
Plus when it sits overnight in Phoenix at 110 degrees, plus the trailer, plus the box in effect with all that stuff sitting in there. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, a lot of this water is packed 5 and 6 months before it's ever sold, right? So it's in the factory. It sits there. And by the way, trust me, they don't keep anything air conditioned in any of these places.
Not if they don't have to.
Right. So you have water just sitting in a hot warehouse, then it's sitting in a hot trailer going to a grocery store or wherever the grocery store's warehouse is, and then it gets distributed from there to the different grocery stores. It stays in the back there. And by the way, when it's being distributed by a truck, you've been in the back of a truck, right, when it's summertime?
Yeah,
it's like a sauna.
I just had a dry load in Phoenix that was it's made by Coca-Cola. It's some like milk protein thing.
Right.
And it was a non-refrigerated load with dairy and stuff in it, which tells you all the chemicals that are probably in it. I don't want to say what the brand is, but
no, you don't have to.
It was sitting in my trailer. It was 113 degrees out, and I was sleeping during the day because of when they loaded me. And for 3 days going across the hottest parts of the country, it sat there completely turned off, and it probably got up to about 150, 160 in there easily.
Yeah, look, I talk to a guy on X every day. His name is Ken. He drives for UPS, and he talks about how hot it gets in the back of those trucks, right? And your truck is just like that, except there is no air popping through like on Ken's UPS truck, right?
Right. In the trailer, that's right.
Yeah, the trailer is just, that gets up. That's like sauna heat, folks. If you've ever been in a sauna, you get to about 170. That's what these things get to. That's where your water is. That's where the leaching is happening, right? So you just putting 5 gallons from home, not as big of a problem. I have one of those camping things, too, with the spigot on it, right? It's a big deal. And we take it camping. I usually use it at the campsite to wash things, right? Because I can just take water out of the stream and run it through. I have all the little fancy devices. I'm a big time camper, and I also boil water in the campsite, right? So there's different ways. You got your little propane stoves and stuff. I just keep water boiling. I'm always doing what you have to do. But I
mostly use that for my coffee maker.
Yeah,
the majority of that goes for.
So it's not a big deal to have that, and I used to say mine is blue. I bet you yours is blue too, because I've never seen any.
Like army green.
I've never seen that color. I always see. I've probably owned 3 of them over the past 30 years, and they've always been blue. And I think is it Coleman? Who makes it's Coleman, right?
Mine was some other brand. I don't know. I found it at Walmart.
Oh, that's a loser brand then. Coleman is the best brand, Joe. Go get a Coleman. No, I'm kidding. Plastic is plastic. But yeah, I use it. It's potable water, but I just use it to wash dishes in a campsite, and it works fine. So you have that going on. You're drinking coffee, tea, water. Mm-hmm. Do you start exercising at any point?
I started walking, which I hadn't really been doing for a very long time. And I mean, like I said, I can't really do sit-ups or leg lifts because of the pain in my back.
Yeah.
But if I'm standing up, I did get a jump rope, and I don't do it for very long because it does start to make my back hurt, but, like a minute at a time. That's about the extent of my exercise.
You and I talked about that on a consult once, right, about getting the rope. Yeah, I thought we did. So that's working out for you.
Yeah, as long as I don't like try to push past when I start feeling like a certain type of ache in my back, that's when I know that I got to stop. I'm done for now.
Yeah. Well, good on you, man. Anything else we should let the audience know before I let you go?
Yeah, one very important thing. As an independent trucker, we sample our oil because we need to make sure that all the stuff inside the engine is working really, really good. And this is an extra bonus for Villa Capelli because you can either get Villa Capelli and know you're getting the good stuff, or you can spend hundreds of dollars taking the store brand and shipping it off to a lab to make sure that it's the real stuff. Yeah.
So there you have it. My brother does that. He will taste liquids. He'll go, oh, that's antifreeze. Oh, that's, transmission fluid. It's funny how these guys know what the different fluids are. Yet some people put these in their body every day.
Yeah.
It's a crazy deal. Joe, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I'm trying to do more of these shows because I think these success stories, I don't know if we even mentioned it here because you and I have talked off the air. Joe has gone from plus 600 pounds down to 260?
70-ish.
270. So you still have a little ways to go.
Yeah.
But you look healthy. You're now not falling asleep in your truck.
No, not at all.
No sleep apnea.
Nope.
All gone, right?
All gone. That, and I don't have, like most days, as long as I don't push it too hard, I don't even really feel much in my back. But if I have one of those, we all have weekdays. Every one of us does. Like a couple weeks ago, I ate a piece of fried chicken, just one leg, and everything was fine until about 6 hours later. Then I started feeling every ache that I remember forgetting about. Yeah,
it's funny how that works. I famously talked about when I ended up eating a lot of seed oils by accident at a Red Lobster. Mm-hmm. And then 3 o'clock in the morning, my whole body was just in pain. Every football injury I ever had. It felt like I had played football earlier that day. And I was just up. I was at a hotel. I just got up and just went at 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, something like that. I just got on the treadmill and just walked for an hour and started to feel better. And then, toweled off and went right back to bed. Sometimes you have to do.
I'm thinking of getting like an elliptical or something because I figured that'll be less impact on my back.
Yeah, ellipticals are good. Also, stationary bikes. You can find the stationary bike for almost free, Joe. Go on Facebook Marketplace or something like that. Someone might pay you to take it away. I'm not kidding.
I've seen the posts where people have them up for sale or they're almost giving them away or.
Yeah, and I'm on spinner number 2 over the past. I've been using the Schwinn spinners over the years. The first spinner I just rusted out from. That's when I was doing all the big time cycling, over 15,000 miles a year, 17,000 miles a year. And when you're just sweating that thing up all the time, eventually you rust it out, you know. And
oh yeah.
And I have this one I had 2 other ones sitting in storage that I bought off of a health club that was closing. And my wife, we were dating, but we weren't living in the same house. I gave one to her to use at her house, and I was still in my house. And I just kept the other one in storage. And then that one came out of storage when so I'm on the second one in about 30 years. And my wife sold the other one to a friend who was trying to get healthy. And we sold it to her for like $100. And you buy these things brand new for like $600, right? And
I never even looked to see how expensive they were.
Oh yeah, a good Schwinn spinner. I think they start at $650 or so, and they go up to like $1,000. No one needs that $1,000 one, but the one I have is like so many models ago that it looks antiquated, but they all work the same. Because my brother got a brand new.
To my wife, I keep trying to convince her. She says it'll ruin the resale value, but I said I should just unbolt the passenger seat in my truck and put a spinner right there.
Well, look,
just
you can.
It to the floor.
It won't hurt the resale value because when you sell the truck, you just unbolt the spinner and put the, put the seat back. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, except my wife she would throw the seat away.
No.
From sitting too long. No, it's just a non-clutter thing because I'm bad about that. I have like 500,000 different hobbies, and she puts up with me still. So.
Yeah, my wife, you and my wife, if you guys were together, you wouldn't have any space to live. She does not throw anything away.
That's the way I am.
Dude, if I'm not using it, let's sell it or give it to someone who can use it.
And that's my wife, 100%.
Oh, I need your wife, man. Can we just trade? I mean, even Steven.
No. My wife is the one that you talked about how you liked her cute voice.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. Another reason to trade. My wife's got that stupid British accent. It sounds cool until you're living with it.
Yeah, I suppose someone posted the other day, Britain, it's so weird. Everyone sounds like Stewie Griffin.
Pretty much. They all sound just like Stewie. God, I got to go there in a few days. All right. So, folks, Joe, do you want to be found on the internet? Can people find you?
People can if they want. It's Libertarian Trucker on X. That's pretty much the only place I am.
Go find the Libertarian Trucker on X. I see him there. He and I talk back and forth. We've done consults. What do you think of the consults, Joe?
I can't believe how little you charge for what you offer.
You're very kind. But you see, the whole idea behind the consults was never to try to make a living out of it, right? It's always, well, I can take this money in and use it towards keeping the podcast running and all that kind of stuff. It's good reserve for that. I don't make much money out of it because most of it goes to taxes, unfortunately. There's no way for me to protect that money. But I want people to feel like they have skin in the game. If you're going to pay for this, you're going to take it seriously, right?
Absolutely.
And, people love them. And I've seen people just like you do the consults, lose 100, lose 200, lose 300. I think the most anyone's lost is 400 or close to it is like 385 or 390. But I'll lie and say that dude lost 400, because it makes me sound cool. And to be honest with you, I think he lost the last 18 because he had the skin removed, right?
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah,
he was on the show.
Yeah. He was. So, folks, you can go check out Joe, Libertarian Trucker. You know what to do with me. We all go shopping on Amazon. Before you go there, go to VinnyTortories.com. Puts coal on the fire, gets my train down the track. I just saw where Peter Pardini showed where my movie, my movie, Fat, a Documentary, is back in the top 20.
Oh, nice.
Hang on. All right. So, wait, I just lied. Here it is. Joe, I'm going to show you up on the screen. It's 31. It's number 31. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, look at that.
Can you see that?
I see it.
Okay.
Yes.
So, wait, that movie's at 31. Let's see. He sent me a bunch of these. Fat 2 is at 68, Joe. Am I lying, Joe, or are you looking at these numbers here? Can you see that?
68. Yeah, I can see it now. Yep.
See that? 68. I'm shocked. I'm shocked at this. And let's see, what's this one? Beyond Impossible. Ooh, Beyond Impossible has got some catching up to do. Is that 105? But I don't think people
I see it.
See it, 105. I don't think people understand that if you're on this is all on Apple. He's looking at them on Apple. If you're anywhere in the top 1,000 on Apple, you're killing it. To be at 31 or 32 with Fat, a Documentary, that's a 5-year-old documentary.
Well, yeah, I've purchased those and sent them to friends. With Apple, if they have an Apple device, you can just purchase it as a gift and send it as a text message.
Yeah. Now, eventually, I'm with my new movie, Dirty Keto. It's only on Amazon because I'm controlling that one. It's not on Apple yet, but Dirty Keto has been killing it on Apple. So, folks, go watch it. Not on Apple, on Amazon. Go watch it on Amazon, rate it and review it. That's how other people find it. And if I can do well enough on Amazon, if I could get the seed money from that, I'm telling you guys how I do business. I'm not a rich man. I take this money and then I go out and put it on Apple. I'll put it on everywhere else. But unless you go and do this now, I can't do that. That's just the way it works. So go check all that out. On behalf of Joe McKendry, my name is Vinny Tortorich. Put life into living and do it with enthusiasm.
Thank you for listening to Fitness Confidential. Get more information at VinnyTortorich.com. Remember to rate and review us on iTunes and follow Vinny on Instagram and Twitter.